Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Predictably, Munguia's B sample comes back positive for banned substance, and that was always going to be the case because it's basically the same urine collected from the same day. Former junior middleweight champion Haime Munguia could face disciplinary action after his B sample came back positive for a banned substance following his May 4th unanimous decision win over Bruno Surace. Munguia could see the win overturned to a no contest and might face a suspension ranging from 6 months to a year. Munguia's team maintained his innocence in a statement Tuesday.
Oh gee, I wasn't expecting that.
Which confirmed his test returned positive for exogenous testosterone metabolites.
Well, what if the B sample didn't come back positive for something? What would have happened then?
While that rarely ever happens, just playing devil's advocate, if there were something in the A sample that was not in the B sample, that might be a case of human error, tempering.
Because remember that it's basically the same urine collected the same day, separated into separate vials. So, in theory, whatever's in the A sample should also be in the B sample, and if it's not, something must have happened in transit.
It would be indicative of something that would also help strengthen Haime Munguia's case, but that's not the case, so that's neither here nor there. The official statement from them reads, "We want to reiterate that this outcome does not change our position. Haime did not knowingly or intentionally ingest any banned substance," the team said in its statement. "We remain steadfast in the belief that this result was caused by contamination, and we are continuing to take every possible step to identify the source. Haime remains unwavering in his commitment to clean competition, and we will continue to work closely with experts and relevant authorities to reach full clarity." After the initial positive test, Munguia, 45-2 with 35 knockouts, said the findings were a complete surprise and formally requested that his B sample be tested. He suggested he would be open to undergo any retroactive, current, or future testing to demonstrate that I have always been a clean athlete. Now that those findings are consistent with his A sample, Munguia will await disciplinary action from the British Boxing Board of Control, and this is where it gets dicey, because the British Boxing Board of Control hand out much lengthier and harsher bans than the commissions here in the United States, where here in America, you may face 6 months to a year. In the UK, it could be upwards of 2 to 4 years.
Yeah, but Jaime's fight wasn't in the UK, it was in Saudi.
Yes, and the BBBOC oversee all the fights in Saudi. And they were the ones presiding over his fight with Bruno Surace. "I have spent my entire life and life doing things the right way, and this is no exception," Munguia said in a statement. "I love boxing, and I am the first one who wants to clear everything up because boxing is my life. I can't wait to get back in the ring. We're going to prove that we never disrespected the sport, my opponents, or misled the fans."
So what do you think the suspension might look like?
I don't know, to be honest. It's a unique situation. A fighter based out of America being suspended, potentially, by the British Boxing Board of Control. As stated, when the BBBOC hands down a suspension, it's never as light as 6 months to a year. It's usually somewhere in between 2 to 4 years. So should we expect Haime to be banned for that amount of time? And if he is banned by the BBBOC, does that also carry over to the commissions here in America? Because if it doesn't, then he'll be back before you know it.
When Conor Benn had his whole fiasco with the BBBOC, he was able to box here in America at least 2 times while all of that was going on. So that is the ray of hope for Haime.
Just won't be able to box in the United Kingdom, not that he boxes in the United Kingdom anyway, and he may not be able to box in Saudi in any fights that the BBBOC is presiding over, but he may still be able to box in America and certainly in Mexico, where they're a lot more freewheeling.
The fans.
Well, there are some people out there who have a bias against Mexican fighters for whatever reason, and they will use this as the latest example to disparage them. Between Luis Neri and Rey Vargas and Canelo Alvarez, Ryan Garcia, to a lesser extent, Oscar Valdez, now Haime Munguia, it paints a certain picture to certain people, so they will use this as ammunition to disparage Mexican fighters. Mexican fight fans are gonna make excuses for Haime and look the other way for no other reason than he is Mexican.
Expecting people to care about their biases and their nationalism.
Essentially, nothing is going to change. I already saw veteran strength and conditioning coach and former dope dealer himself, Angel Heredia, provide his own explanation, saying, possible outcome on Munguia testosterone positive finding. 1, he used a cream or a gel. 2, someone gave it to him, not telling him what it was. 3, someone touched him intentionally with a cream or gel. The fact is, synthetic testosterone is extremely impossible to be in supplements.
These are the pads that doesn't end.
No, sir.
Cases go on and on, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Some people make excuses, say they don't know what it was, where it came from, how it got there, and that is because these are the pads that doesn't end.
You remember Lamb Chop?
Memo Heredia continued, possibly a pro-hormone can trigger it as well. What was his testosterone-epitestosterone ratio if one was applied? WADA uses CIR testing as confirmatory tool when red flags are shown during testing, epitestosterone and testosterone.
Listen, man, as far as I'm concerned, Haime is just another dirty fighter in a dirty sport, and that doesn't make him any better or any worse than anybody else and everybody else, because as far as I'm concerned, everybody's doping.
He's just one of the dumb ones that got caught.
And all of this is just a formality. They're going through the motions like everybody else. This song and dance, it's not our first rodeo, and it won't be the last.
Elsewhere in the division, revisiting Oscar De La Hoya's clapback Thursday and what he said about the Canelo versus Crawford fight, Dana White as well.
De La Hoya turned to the story he's seeing frequently mentioned of the September 13th undisputed super middleweight title fight between champion Canelo Alvarez and unbeaten 4-weight champion Terence Crawford in Vegas. The biggest fight of the decade. To a purist and a fighter, it's laughable, De La Hoya said. You have Crawford jumping up 2 weight classes at age 37 after more than 1 year layoff to fight Canelo, a natural light heavyweight. Crawford, who went life and death with former WBA junior middleweight champion Israel Madrimov, what do you think Canelo will do with him? Run him out of the ring!
De La Hoya, of course, formerly promoted Alvarez from 2010 to 2019 when they fell out over finances.
And he's been acting like a woman scorned ever since. The fact that UFC CEO Dana White is promoting his first boxing match in the bout inspired De La Hoya to label his rival the trust fund baby of boxing, because White has no stable of boxers, didn't negotiate shit, and is being handed this fight on a silver platter and being called a promoter. De La Hoya claimed he's heard Alvarez vs. Crawford will be streamed by Netflix during the afternoon hours, so the UFC Noche event can be viewed by combat sports fans that night. Alvarez moved his traditional Cinco de Mayo weekend card May 3rd out of Vegas to Saudi Arabia. Canelo will fight anytime, anywhere he's told, because he doesn't care about the fans, about tradition, the Mexican weekend, De La Hoya said. This whole thing's a shit show. Aren't you embarrassed? Perhaps most telling, De La Hoya, by informing White he's entering a different business model loaded with competitors after dominating the MMA landscape. Don't think of bringing your pathetic pay scale to boxing. These fighters won't go for it, De La Hoya said in comments directed to White and his new boxing promotion, TKO. The truth is, they have no fighters. I've never been happier to trade calls with fellow boxing promoters Eddie Hearn and Al Heyman, because guess what? We aren't going anywhere. With that, De La Hoya clapped his session closed. Now, the latest from Dana White himself indicates that the Netflix streamed September 13th Canelo vs. Crawford undisputed super middleweight title fight will take place at the 65,000 capacity Allegiant Stadium in Vegas, the home of the Raiders, via Jim Rome, who he spoke to about it.
But what about the fight happening in the afternoon to accommodate Noche, the UFC? Are they really doing that?
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, boxing and MMA don't really share an audience. It's only a small substrata of individuals that watch both sports and may have to be forced to choose between the boxing event and the MMA match. But most of the time, the boxing fans are gonna watch boxing, the MMA fans are gonna watch MMA, to where you don't need to move things around for one to accommodate the other. And Canelo has gone head to head with UFC events before and still done his numbers. So the idea that they would place this fight in the afternoon is asinine and an indicator of how green they are. You don't have to do that.
How inexperienced if they do that. But of course, this bit of intel is coming to us from Oscar, so should we even trust it? He's just in a hurry to say any disparaging thing about Canelo, about Dana,
and indirectly about Turkey, because we all know who's bankrolling this thing. We all know who put it together, and I've noticed how comfortable Oscar has become doing that over time, all while negotiating a relationship with Jake Paul and MVP. Oscar was never happy about Turkey's entry into the American boxing scene. His arrival here, you will remember that he at first resisted it.
Don't you remember what he said? Foreign invaders, nobody's gonna come into his neck of the woods, yada yada yada.
Then he sort of simmered down, at least for a little while, when they worked on his Latino night over there in Saudi. But it would seem that he's back to his old antics. He's back to his old tricks, because if you take a shot at this event, you are indirectly taking a shot at Turkey. He's the one who put it all together. And I can only go back to what I usually say about Oscar's little observations. You've got far too much time on your hands worrying about everybody else, when you should worry about your own stable, your own promotion, and promoting your own fighters. Turkey doesn't need you to oversee what he's doing, and neither does Dana, and neither does Canelo, because he's still making money, and all without you.
That's what really grinds your gears, isn't it?
That Canelo, after leaving Golden Boy Promotions, what was it, 5 years ago, has only gone on to make more money and more money from strength to strength, and you don't get a piece of that action.
It's more of an indictment on you than it is on anybody else that Turkey LL Sheik trusts Dana White to handle things more than he trusts you, and you're supposed to be the veteran promoter.
Men's heavyweight news. Kevin Lerena is planning a quote-unquote calculated performance against Lawrence Okolie, the two-weight champion. South African heavyweight Kevin Lerena is hopeful of an upset win when he faces Lawrence Okolie at Wembley Stadium next month. Okolie, 21-1 with 16 knockouts, knocked out Krzysztof Glowacki in 2021 to claim the WBO cruiserweight title, and made 3 defenses before a surprise defeat to Chris Billum-Smith ended his reign in 2023. Since then, the Londoner has run through Lukas Rozanski to pick up the WBC Bridgerweight title and debuted at heavyweight back in December, where he registered a second consecutive opening round knockout against Hussein Muhammad. Now ranked as the WBC's #1 heavyweight contender, Okolie is well poised for a shot at the coveted green and gold heavyweight title, but faces his first real test in the division against Lerena, 31-3 with 15 knockouts on the Usyk vs Dubois undercard in London. Speaking of boxing news, Lerena admitted there will be no room for error when he and Okolie go toe-to-toe, but maintained that his style will cause problems for the hometown fighter. He is a very good boxer. He is a long, rangy guy, Lerena said. He is going to throw a lot of backhands, a lot of long right hands, and he's going to work behind his jab, but I have the knack of taking the jab away, and I've got the knack of making them miss and making them pay. I am by no means a technical, awkward, boring southpaw, he added. I come to fight, but I think I need to be calculated in my approach with Lawrence. I will come to fight, but I will come to fight with precision and no mistakes. There is no room for error in there, and there is definitely no room for mistakes against Lawrence Okolie. Lerena is on a 3-2 run in his last 5 outings. 2 defeats earned the KO Kid heaps of credit, but both took place outside of South Africa. Against Dubois, Lerena floored the now IBF heavyweight champion 3 times in the opening round before being stopped himself in the 3rd, while in March of 2024, he came close to stopping Justice Hooney in the final round of their fight.
Learning from those mistakes, Lerena went on to reveal his plans for a more calculated attitude when he has his man hurt in the future.
I need to finish them. I know that I can hurt them, he said. They all know that I've got the explosive hands and that I've got the power in my punches, but when I have them hurt, I've got to finish them. I think that there is a calculated way to do that. Sometimes throwing the kitchen sink at them and going balls to the wall is not the answer. It is about picking your shots. You can throw a flurry of 25 punches, but if only 2 land, it is meaningless. So you've got to be calculated, and that is what I'm looking to do in this fight. Should I get that opportunity?
Now, what this assignment may require of Kevin Lerena may be more than he has in his tool bag. I feel like this boils down to 2 things: footwork and defense. Getting within proximity of Lawrence will be difficult, but so long as Kevin can, he can do serious damage.
Mid-range to inside, which favors the smaller fighter with the shorter arms who can connect punches at that proximity better than the taller, longer fighter. But getting there is the problem. Getting close enough to Lawrence to land those punches, and remember that Lawrence...
He could always tie him up. He could always initiate a clinch. Remember, that's what he used to do down there at cruiserweight. Whenever things got too close for comfort, he'd tie the guy up. People hated him for it, but it worked.
Smothering the other guy's work, and also remember that Lawrence Okolie is the house fighter. He's the Queensbury Promotions fighter, so it's not likely that the third man in the ring, the referee, will deduct a point for excessive holding.
Still, this is an intriguing matchup. When the men are this size, you're always 1 punch away from being knocked out. So what if Kevin Lerena lands on Lawrence the way he landed on Daniel? How well will Lawrence Okolie hold a shot?
Kevin does have some ingredients to make things difficult for Lawrence. Some might think that because Lawrence is a lot taller and a lot longer, that would make Kevin Lerena an easy target. It all depends. It could also make him a smaller target, to where Lawrence has to punch down to hit him, leaving him open for overhand shots around the side of the head.
Shorter, stumpier, stockier fighter, if he knows how to use it, that lower center of gravity, he can make things very difficult for that long and limber fighter. And what else is interesting? Whoever wins this fight is on a collision course with this division's bogeyman, the dark horse, Agit Kabayel. Remember, this is all by way of the WBC, and he's interim champion.
So should Lawrence Okolie make it through this acid test, it's only going to get more difficult from here on out. I would be impressed if he blasts Kevin out of there like he did Lukas Rozansky and Hussein Muhammad, because a lot of guys struggle with Kevin, even the ones that beat him.
If Lawrence can wrap him up with minimal discomfort, that actually would be impressive and an encouraging omen for his continued campaign at heavyweight, where he aspires to become a 3-weight world champion.
Look for this on the undercard of Usyk versus Dubois 2, and we'll talk more about it as the fight date approaches.